So it comes right to your phone, and then you can share it.
Okay, cool.
Jack Begley has liked it that you were going to be on. There it is, live from Mevo.
All right.
And share.
I'll change the title after I can close out of the script read.
Now with Donya. Donya is a really big deal at Purdue University. She was, I guess. You literally just emailed Donya at purdue.edu.
You still can.
Yeah.
They let me keep that in retirement.
Ooh,
Cool?
nice.
Isn't that cool?
They're like, so many people are going to be so used to this, we just might as well give it to her. No one can change. If you changed it, it would have been, with all the contacts I imagine you have, it would have been such a hassle.
Well, it's nice to be able to keep an email. I mean, I'll have another one for some other ventures that I have, because there are restrictions on the use of Purdue emails. So,
yeah.
apply to retirees the same as this. And commercial ventures, I don't think would be really cool to be carrying out with the Purdue.
You can't run your own podcast through the Purdue email server.
Well, you might for a while, but I don't think it'd be a good long-term plan.
Did you see that?
John Gruden says it's tough to find. Didn't he just have a good pass rusher?
Yeah, he traded him to the Bears. Like, second best pass rusher in the game.
All right.
Did you tag me in the live?
Yeah, you should be tagged just now.
Hody Johns. I think I'm saying it right. Is it Hody or Hottie? Not sure.
I don't know.
I'm very bad with pronunciation. If you've been listening long enough, you know that I have a horrible time pronouncing words. A lot of times I write down things and I write down things and I don't know that I've ever said them out loud. And
Hody is my new Facebook friend. I added Hody the other day.
Did he?
Yeah.
I saw that
he lives in Utah.
In
I know
Utah.
that, yeah.
Well, I saw that he commented on the picture with us and Mr. Craig DaCosta that Hody. I nailed it the first time. There we go.
There you go.
Nice.
You got it. Hody, how do we sound? We sound okay out there in Beehive land?
Beehive.
Is it the honeycomb or beehive? There's something. It's my ancestors are from there. We've talked about this when we did the ancestry show. I had the purest of Mormon blood, early original settlers. Yeah.
Interesting.
You've already forgotten about me.
Yep, I did.
All right, good enough. I think once Donya says she's got it shared, we can start.
I am sharing it
All right.
now, so you can go.
Chase, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
Ready for some football?
I'm so ready.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 78 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell, and today I'm joined by co-host Dakota Davis.
In today's episode, we are featuring guest Donya Lester from Purdue University. Well,
Formerly
of Purdue. Yeah, formerly of Purdue.
Well,
University. She still has the email. And then we also, of course, have Chase Peyton. He's a guest host today. And today we are going to be talking all about government involvement in universities around the United States, also the government's involvement in agriculture, and if there are any free markets left in the world of agriculture. And then as we get to the end, we are going to be keeping with our local roots and talking about some sidewalk drama and movie theater drama. So
there we go.
Stick with us.
So this show is about our lives in rural Indiana. As always, we promise our episodes are going to be fun and an easy listen. We have sponsorship opportunities to go to. We're in the new studio, and we got rent.
That's right. Yeah, we got some rent to cover now. We got all things going, all kinds of good things happening. So if you are a business owner and you would like to have your business featured on the mysterious garage door behind us, then we can make that happen. So just contact Jeremiah or myself, and we'll get you hooked up.
We could go week to week, just spitballing here. And right now we're at $0 a week, so it could be like a rolling bidding average. If somebody offers me $2 next week, your logo could be back there in front of hundreds and hundreds of live viewers.
I like it.
Or thousands.
Can we rent out each individual square?
We could.
Maybe?
We could be like NASCAR, where it says Unical and Phillips 76 and Ray Bestis. We could have them all up there.
That's
and
right.
You'll sound like
if
Ricky
I give
Rudd
you
after
$1, will you put my shirt back there?
I don't know.
Maybe.
$1?
Perhaps.
Not worth
$1.50.
it. If you cover
$1.50.
1 month's rent, we can make that happen.
Ooh, we'll talk after
$2.
here. We should have these negotiations privately.
Yeah. Chase drinks Gatorade on every show, so maybe we should have a Gatorade sponsorship.
I could deal with that.
Yeah, you could you make that happen for us?
I can make that happen.
All right.
Well, you're going to be director of sales and marketing shortly. And then if you are a monthly contributor to the show in our what we call Patreon, that's the group of folks that get special access. They get insider information, extra shows, all kinds of. They get the show notes ahead of time, so they have a clue as to what we're actually talking about. You got a special show. It's in your feed today. Did
That's
you guys
right.
record
Yeah,
it?
we recorded. We recorded last night, and that is tinfoil time with my wife and I, and we talk about conspiracy theories. My wife is a research scientist, and she likes doing research. And last night,
She's really a scientist already.
yeah,
She's
that's,
been there like 3 days.
well,
She got the title of
that's
scientist.
her official title, man. She's serious in this world. Yeah, so I'm married to a scientist
married
now,
up.
and so to celebrate her job as a research scientist, we cover the topic of big pharma and whether or not the government is hiding the cure for cancer from us. So it was a good one. She talked me up and down. She knew a lot more than what I did.
I'm
going
going
to
to say government is wildly inefficient, and they're not hiding the cure from cancer. from them. I'm just going to guess, but I have not listened yet.
Don't
I'm guessing.
Don't ruin it. They
I
have to
haven't-
sign up for the Patreon
I
to
haven't
know
heard it.
that.
I haven't seen it. This is just my uneducated opinion, but I am
I
a
think they
Patreon
do.
member. Yeah, of course
You
you
think
do.
that? Of course you do.
Of
Chase.
course you do. Of course you do. Chase, once again, if you are in the podcast world, he is wearing his "Wind Farms Are Cool" pinwheel shirt. You really just want to
I think we should
yelled at
start
again?
selling them online.
Sailing them
Yes.
like with
I don't have-
sailboats.
I don't have earphones, Dakota. I can't hear myself.
But if one more person joins the Patreon, we will buy Chase a set of earphones, and we will name them after you. So they will the Chase
Thank
Peyton
you.
earphones. No, we won't name them after you. We'll name them after the next Patreon subscriber.
Oh.
So Dennis Free just logged in to watch. Sherry Conover Charlo up in Marion, Indiana, just jumped in.
I'd wear Dennis on my ears.
Yeah, we'll put the sponsor logo on there. Little picture of Dennis.
I like it.
Why not?
I like that.
All right, we've made poor Donya sit here long enough watching the awkwardness. I've known Donya for 3 years now, I think, something like that. Coming up on like our 1,000-day friendship anniversary.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping she gets me something.
How creepy.
Oh yeah, I just did the math. I do creepy really well. Have you met me?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So Donya had worked for Purdue University in her role. I've been with P. Carrot for a few years at the state level, and Donya would come into our meetings and give presentations on government relations. And we'd be Facebook friends and have followed each other. And so I've kind of watched what Donya does, and I'm sure the exposure that I've had is a very small part of what Donya actually was responsible for at Purdue. But I thought Donya would be a great guest to bring on the program. And now that she's recently retired, the gloves are off, and she can speak freely about the education system and her role. So first, we want to welcome you to the show.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, and you still live up in northwestern Indiana, or
West Central.
West Central. That's
West
what we call it.
Central.
So we're East Central,
Yeah.
and you're northwest central almost.
What is West Central? Is that Terre Haute?
No, I'm in Montgomery County,
Okay.
just north of Crawfordsville.
All
about,
right.
There you go. So that is West Central. You're
About
just
8
off
miles.
I-74.
You're right.
just 8 miles north of I-74.
Not that we were doubting you or anything.
Don't ever do that.
There's a bunch of bridge work going on I-74 over there,
yeah.
and that's me. That's my fault.
Oh, okay.
I'm supplying that. So when it goes terribly wrong,
That's why I went on 32 today,
That's right.
and that's why I had all the traffic on 32.
It's okay. Chase was late, so
So your accent is not
I'm not from
not native to
you're not
Montgomery County.
from around here, is you?
south of 40. South of 40. That's what my folks always tell me. No, I grew up in northwest Georgia, a little town called Cedartown, and was educated in Georgia. I went to Berry College, a little private college in northwest Georgia for my freshman year, then transferred to the University of Georgia. Majored in agriculture there and animal science, and then I went to another land-grant university, to Virginia Tech, and got a master's degree there. So I spent a good portion of my life. My first job was in Texas, so I've spanned the breadth of the South. So you may pick up lots of different accents from me. I've amalgamated a lot of things over the years from where I've been.
Do you say wash or wash?
I say wash, so it's 2 syllables. I don't say either one of those.
What state has the best food?
Oh my.
Really putting her on the spot.
I really missed Tex-Mex when I left Texas. Texas really is serious about good food, and so that I missed that food. But I like spicy, and so that's why Midwestern cuisine's not really great for me because black pepper's spicy for the Midwest.
Mayonnaise for people is spicy here.
Yeah. So
because our signature dish gets mayonnaise, tomatoes, and and lettuce on a tenderloin.
Right. So.
Yeah, except for I guess the one Midwesterner we know that really loves spicy stuff would be Mr. Darren Jacobs.
Yeah,
he brought ghost peppers on the show a few weeks ago.
And no, I can't
it was
do
really
those.
bad.
I can't do those.
Yeah, we had a
wanna
recording
live.
of it. Yeah,
I want to live.
Yeah, the
so
end
I
of
don't eat
the end of
those.
September was our ghost pepper episode, and
August. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're-
So it ruined a part of my brain that will never come back.
It's already blocked from his memory.
It'll never come back.
Had to go to therapy.
So Donya, you were at you said you were in Texas, and it had something to do with cows. I want to say that Dakota goofed up because it says that you were with the Brangus Breeders Association.
That's correct.
It's not Angus, it's Brangus.
Brangus is an American breed, which is a 3/8 Brahman, 5/8 Angus. It was called a synthetic breed. It followed the pattern that was set by the King Ranch when they developed the Santa Gertrudis cattle. They used Shorthorn for the 5/8 portion and the Brahman for the 3/8. And the reason being, in that Gulf Coast climate down there, that a lot of we called eared cattle, the Brahman cattle, the Zebu cattle, have a lot of advantages in terms of their survivability of that climate. They don't grow as much hair, for one thing. And
You're worried about the cows overheating, basically.
yeah, so they just they're adapted differently to the forage conditions, all kinds of things down there. So the thing was to get an optimum amount of the Zebu cattle in them, so that they had that adaptability to the climate and to the environment, but then to have enough of what we call the English breeds, the Angus, the Hereford, the Shorthorn, those kind of breeds, to have the carcass quality that we wanted, so that they would marble well and that they would grow well, all of those kinds of things, and the milk production of the cows, that sort of thing. So
Carcass quality is what you call. Is that like the quality of the meat that you get out of? Okay.
Correct.
So I got to be honest with you. Before I started researching for this episode, and I saw that you worked at the Brangus Breeders Association. Are we saying that right, Brangus?
That's correct.
Okay. So
Brahma and Angus combined.
Correct.
Yeah. So I used to play this video game called Fallout. Have you ever played it?
I played it a couple times.
Probably
Okay.
not where Donya thought her evening was going.
Yeah, probably not. But
I know nothing about video games. I'm
before
totally
this
out of my
episode,
element.
so Fallout is about this post-apocalyptic world, and you're trying to survive. And they have cows, and the way that they label the cows is Brahman. But there's a lot of other sci-fi things thrown in. And before this episode, I had no idea that Brahman was an actual cow. And it wasn't just made up by the producers of the video game.
No.
That's me coming clean.
The International Brahman Breeders Association, the IBBA, is located in, or used to be in Houston, Texas. So.
Wow. And you were pretty close in San Antonio. Is it pretty close? I have no idea.
No, nothing's close in Texas.
Yeah.
So, and San Antonio is right in the middle. So it was several hours from Houston.
Well, it's not very close.
And then from there, you went back home.
Yes,
somewhere in there, you went back
yeah,
to Georgia.
went back to the University of Georgia and worked for the College of Agriculture there for 4 years. Did all kinds of stuff for them. I went there as a fundraiser, and then my job morphed while I was there into an alumni relations student recruitment position. So I had a split appointment, so I had 2 offices in the same building and on different floors, which is interesting.
Before lunch, I'm on the 3rd
Well,
floor. After lunch, I'm on the 7th floor.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. And then, that was before we had email, and so I had mailboxes in 2 buildings on campus, and so that was crazy. But so I did a lot of things for the College of Agriculture there, and then through that job, I got involved with the National Professional Organization for folks who do alumni and fundraising for colleges of agriculture across the country, the National Association, the National Agricultural Alumni and Development Association, NAADA, NADA. And one of the founders of that group was Maury Williamson, who happened to have been my predecessor at Purdue in my Ag Alumni role, which is not the role that Jeremiah knows me from, but my Ag Alumni role is the role I came to in 1990 when Maury retired. And so it was really, he had developed the Ag Alumni Association there into an incredible volunteer support organization for the college.
And Maury was an East Central Indiana guy.
You betcha.
He was from
Right
this-
over here in Economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too
About
far
15,
east of
20
you
minutes away.
guys. Yeah.
So how does one get involved in a school of agriculture? Like, so you obviously worked in agriculture. You had all kinds of a master's degree and bachelor's degree. So, what made you decide to go the educational route in an institution, like an educational institution? Shouldn't just say institution.
In terms of for my profession,
Yeah,
to come
like
back and
I'm
do that?
guessing, like, why did you decide to make that choice?
Lots of reasons. I really loved the University of Georgia. I still, I think if you cut deep enough, I bleed red and black. So I really loved the University of Georgia. I love my time in Athens. And so when an opportunity came up to work for the college, it just seemed like a natural fit for me. I didn't know anything about raising money for anything, much less for a College of Agriculture. And fortunately, no one else there did either, so that was okay. It was actually an experimental position that the university was doing. They had never had a decentralized fundraising operation before. They had a pilot with me and then a person for the law school there. And it was a 3-year pilot, and the salary was shared between Central Development and the college, and then it migrated to the college after the end of the 3rd year. Well, in that time period, the vice president for development changed, the university president, because the university president changed, and they decided that decentralized model wasn't what they wanted to do after all, so my position essentially got eliminated as a fundraiser.
You rolled into something else.
So I rolled into another job because by then I was 100% on the dean's payroll, so he decided what to do with me, and that was Ag Alumni and then later student recruitment.
And then you wound up with the opportunity through Maury coming to Purdue University, where you then spent the next
28 plus years.
28 years. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, real high level, the types of involvement you had with Purdue. You were working in the College of Ag. You were involved in government relations. You were involved in
That
Ag
came
Alumni.
later.
Okay.
That came later. The position I had for 28 years was the executive director of the Ag Alumni Association. Well, it started as executive secretary. That was the title Maury had, and then later it became executive director. But about 7 years ago, maybe now, when I had been there a little over 20 years, I had a discussion with the dean that I wanted a new challenge. And where could I take my talent for relationship building? Because that's really what I consider myself as a relationship manager. I developed those relationships and then helped to manage them for the college. And we didn't really have anybody doing federal relations at that time. So the dean saw that as a gap and felt that my talents would fit there. And it fit my interest for sure. I hope that my talents fit what they needed, but it certainly fit what I needed because I loved that part of my job. So I did that for the next 7 years, and as you know, the group that you have that are a volunteer for, the Purdue Council for Agricultural Research, Extension, and Teaching, PCARET, is a grassroots organization that's organized at the county, district, and state levels in Indiana so that people advocate for us at the local, state, and federal levels to advocate because Purdue Agriculture, because of its land grant mission, land grant universities are unique in that they have a tripartite mission. Most places, say a liberal arts college will only have an academic instruction mission, teaching. Then you have other places that have a research component added into it. But land-grant universities are unique because they have the extension function as that third part of their mission, and that is to take the educational products that are developed at the university, that research, take that information and deliver it to people in packages that help them to have better lives and more productive livelihoods.
Okay. So going back to the first job that you had at Purdue as, or I guess the second job as the executive director of the Alumni Association.
Mm-hmm.
What are the details of that job? What does that entail?
Essentially, I was responsible for developing a volunteer network for the College of Agriculture among our alumni and friends. And the alumni of the College of Agriculture are not just the four-year alumni, because for many years there was an 8-week winter short course at Purdue. And a lot of the people that are our alumni are graduates or certificate holders from that winter short course. Now, that program ended in the early 90s, I believe it was. And but the people who went back with that certificate, went back to local communities, became a large core group of supporters for our college, and we count them among our alumni body. So I went around. When I first took the job, there were over 40 county chapters of Purdue Ag alumni around the state. Active chapters, and by active that meant they had had at least one meeting in the last year. And some of those folks had meetings 2-3 times a year. There was a very active group over here in Henry County. We had Newcastle was usually where we held our district meeting for this district.
Oh, cool.
So do you remember some of the names that we would be involved with there? We'll put you on the spot,
Oh,
Donya.
wow. It's been a long time since I have been over here for meetings. So there are a lot of the guys. Bob Bittler was one who was really important to us. Bob lived in the Knightstown area, and Bob is no longer with us, but we had a lot of summer meetings were held at Bob's home, and that was really, really special. So.
Huh.
Yep.
That's really neat.
Well, that's the thing I would imagine with the Ag Alumni Association, or with that group, is it's a very intimate group, and you're spending time on a lot of farms. You're not.
Well,
a lot of the meetings I end up with are in a government conference center or some.
Oh yeah,
some
I
library
had
or
a
something.
lot of tool shed meetings,
Yeah.
and so in 1990, I had never worn a pair of pants to work. You got to remember, it's a whole different time. It's before you guys are born, and
Well, these two.
Yeah, so it was really a different time, and I had never worn pants to work. I always wore skirts, and so finding things that I felt were appropriately professional, but were also appropriate to wear to a tool shed meeting, that was kind of a challenge. Thank God for Lands' End and washable cotton cardigan and skirt sets. I wore lots of those in those days. But yeah, I had a lot of that face-to-face contact, because I mean, I was at Purdue and we got our first email, for crying out loud. And that's something none of y'all remember.
No wonder you got Donya at Purdue.edu.
You bet.
You're the
I was
very first
there.
person,
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't have that in the beginning, because we had a whole different server configuration. So yeah, I've gone through several iterations of email. But so it was a lot of that face-to-face relationship building for the college, and getting to know people, getting to know who had an interest in our college, who wanted to be promoters of us, who really knew people in their communities and were interested in helping us recruit students, who were the influencers. I mean, it's the same thing you guys do with political issues. Who are the influencers? So because our extension service, and back to that, the extension service is a partnership of local government, because we have an office in all, or I still say we, Purdue has an office in all of Indiana's counties, and it's one of the few extension services in the country that does still have an office in all the counties. And
the office for Henry County here is about a block away.
Right.
You parked in the lot you would park in to go to the
Henry
Henry County
extension office. And so there is a front door to Purdue University in every county in this state, and so that is an arm of the College of Agriculture, but that's a partnership, because Henry County has a services contract with Purdue Extension to provide a portion of the funding. Likely as not, the clerical person that works in that office is paid by the county as a county staff member. And then there's a contract for services to provide those educators, however many there are in the county, that are employed by Purdue. Counties have a voice in who is hired. They participate in the hiring process. It's managed by Purdue, of course.
Through an extension board.
Right.
A local extension board.
And so there is local input into the hiring process for those people, and local input then through those extension boards about the kind of programming that's appropriate for a community, because it's very different what you need in Henry County versus what someone who is in a suburb of Gary might need, or Fort Wayne, or down around Louisville.
If you're talking about an issue in Lake County, you're a lot of times you're working with urban farming, and that's the natural resources side, or you're working with STEM and 4-H, whereas over here you may be dealing with an issue in a pond, or you might be working with forestry or row crops.
And to go to the Wind Farms Are Cool T-shirt and bring that
They
into the
look really cool, by the way.
and bring that into the discussion. Land use and planning. Those are things that Purdue has experts in. And so people who can come in with information, unbiased information, just information, so that then people can apply that information to their value system and make appropriate decisions for their communities, for their families, whatever the issue is, whether it's how to manage finances, all of those kinds of things. But it's really great in services for farmers. And we talk about farming. My husband farms. And so when you look at farming, everybody else that comes to our door has something to sell. The information they provide has a slant. The people that my husband connects with at Purdue have unbiased information. They have information that he can trust. When he looks to make decisions with inputs, I mean, when margins are small, it's really important that you watch, and don't just buy something because the salesman says it's good.
Yeah,
Yes.
company A is trying to sell company A's product.
You betcha. And I don't blame them at all, that they're doing their jobs. But as a farmer, as a citizen, I need something else. And where do I get that? Well, my land-grant university is a place I can get that. So that's the purpose and the role that it serves, to be useful in our world and to help us to make better decisions for our farm and for our family, and things that will help us to be more profitable.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting. I had no idea. Like, whenever, so I guess I knew that someone was doing it, right? So but you don't, if you're not involved in that world, you don't really think
Right.
about it, right?
And that's what Jeremiah's on, that grassroots group, to talk and to help people understand at the local level, and then and decision makers. He goes, as part of that group, he talks to local decision makers. We've had cases in counties who, county budgets, I mean, everybody's stressed, as medical costs for county employees go up, all those kinds of things. Where do we cut? What do we do? And our roads are in bad shape. Well, okay, this 4-H program, maybe we can cut that. Well, the people for whom that's important want to be heard at the
Right.
county level.
Yeah.
And people like Jeremiah are there to help us communicate with those decision makers. And again, provide them the information to show the difference this makes in your community and the payback that you're getting for the dollars that you invest. Because we like to talk in terms of investment, not expenditures, because, I said we, but
I think that's going to stick with you for a
I
long time.
think that's a hard habit to break. But we talk about investments more than we talk about expenditures, because when we look and when we talked to those decision makers, we talked about the return, and we talked about leveraging, that the money that they put in from their piece was leveraged to help us get other monies. That if we have a scientist who's really good in their field to do research on ABC, that helps us attract private dollars for sponsored research. It helps us attract all kinds of other funding from other agencies that may be looking to solve a problem. The Department of Defense, the National Institutes of Health, those kinds of things have.
REMC just worked with Purdue University and I think the College of Ag. I could be wrong on that, but on rural broadband.
Oh,
a study
yes,
that just came out of the
yes,
school.
absolutely involved in that. Our Cooperative Extension Service, and I'm sure probably the Office of Engagement. I'm not quite sure the folks that would all be involved in that, but definitely our Extension Service has been very interested in that, because rural broadband is critical to providing opportunities for rural counties and for citizens to be on an equal footing economically.
We have gigabit internet service in this studio in rural Henry County, Indiana.
Wow.
1 gigabyte up and 250 down.
Which allows us
Which
to
is
put out
incredible.
a broadcast across
Right,
the world in
right,
incredible quality.
Right. But you're
how-
a rare bird.
We are, yeah. It's not. It's definitely not available in all 92 counties.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the gem that we have whenever it comes to having the internet speeds and the quality that we have here.
And just what is expected. I have a young friend is in her first year of teaching at middle school there in the North Montgomery system, and her husband was telling us the other night that she had assigned homework or whatever, and kids came back, and there were kids that couldn't do their homework because they don't have internet at home. I mean, and it's not just affordability. For some families, it's the affordability issue, but it doesn't matter how much money you have in some parts of our county. There is no reliable internet service for those folks.
Nothing that can compare to areas like where we have our fiber available to us.
Right.
So before we move on to our next topic, I want to ask you, in your professional and very
Former profession.
yes, and unbiased opinion,
I can't
do you
that.
think
Everybody has a bias.
would you say that serving on the serving with P Carrot would lend itself very well to someone who would be on the county council in an area? Wink.
Well, I think that serving on P Carrot provides a window to a lot of what is available. Just like you've been sitting here with your eyes being open to some things that the land grant university provides. I think that Jeremiah has learned a lot through P Carrot about what Purdue is, and specifically what Purdue agriculture can do for communities. And so in terms of linkages and partnerships, I think anybody who understands who the players are is in a better position to overlay that to problems they encounter in their work or their public service, whatever it is. The bigger our networks are and the more understanding we have, the more information that we can assimilate to problems and help to solve problems more effectively.
Wonderful answer.
Something Purdue is involved in that a lot of people don't realize in the College of Ag is they are on the front lines of trying to get out in front of the opioid epidemic. A friend of ours today said he's attended more funerals for people his age than he has weddings.
Oh my!
That is horrible. Which stuck me right through the heart when I read that. But he's probably right.
Wow.
Because millennials get married later, and we're losing people way too early.
I know. Just open a newspaper and look at the ages.
And it's a real problem. What Purdue Extension has done at a pilot level, and it's beginning to go through. Henry County sent their Health and Human Services agent through training. Recently.
Sciences.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's alphabet soup at the university level. Yes, sciences.
Health and Human Sciences.
It's not the cabinet level position.
There you go.
Yes,
There you
that's
go.
the other side. But our agent, our educator, went through that program, and that is designed to get people before they get involved, and it's a preventative program.
Well, and there are lots of things that the Extension Service is doing in terms of building healthier families. Because, trying to intervene at family levels, why is it that people get addicted in the first place? And what is it? Is it a breakdown of family structure? What is it that goes on? Can we intervene sooner? Because we know that if we can spend dollars to keep people from being addicted, it will be cheaper in the long run for everybody.
Save a lot of money on treatment and rehabilitation
centers. You bet. If you just look at it from a dollars and cents perspective, it's smart. It's a smarter expenditure of money to prevent an addiction than it is to treat one.
Or to lock somebody up.
Yeah, well,
which is what we end up doing.
Exactly. And so from an expenditure standpoint, and counties are stretched. Whatever we can do to help our budgets is smart. But that aside, then the human cost.
Right. And we just shared an article on our page today or yesterday about how Indiana is receiving $25 million from the federal government to help fight the opioid epidemic, and it's part of this grant process that the Trump administration has, is sending out $1 billion all across the nation. So
Wow.
it's not just here. And the sad thing about it is that $25 million that we're getting is going to scratch the tip of the iceberg of the problem, right?
Yeah.
So it's an incredible problem.
And that's why we talk about these things like extension we already have an infrastructure. I mean, everybody talks about infrastructure and how important it is. Well, we have this delivery infrastructure in place through the Cooperative Extension Service that's in every community. People who know, they know the community, they know the influencers in the community, they know the problems of a community firsthand. And so they know what they need to do. So they can come to people who have the funding and say, here's what we need for Henry County. And Lake County can do the same thing in extension in ways that other entities can't always do. But then they're partners. Because they're part of that county system, they're already partners with county health departments, with others in the county that are looking at these same things.
In our county, the health department is on the second floor of a building, and the extension office is on the third floor.
Right.
They share a bathroom.
Well,
So they're working. They're working with each other every day.
They
They're
know
integrated.
each other,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. When you have people who are already working in the community and they're looking to solve community problems, that's the people we should go to first. And the fact that they're also tied to a world-class university that is developing information to help us understand problems and social science problems as well as scientific ones, that's all the better.
All right. Well, we will leave the extension side there for now, unless Chase has any more questions.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think you answered all of them.
Sorry about that.
And we'll
I did
talk.
bring you in with the shirt.
Yeah, that's it.
That's right.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Give you a shout out.
We won't show Donya the back of the
Wind
shirt
farms
until
were
it's
cool.
over. I don't want
That's all I
her.
wanted to say.
Yeah, I don't want her to read.
Make
the back
sure
of
that
it.
whenever
Yeah,
you
I don't
walk,
want you to read the back.
whenever you walk out the
I'll
door,
see
just
that
walk
when
with
he-
your back out.
I'll go sideways.
Because I think Donya considers herself to be a baby boomer, and you have to be careful. Anyway,
Didn't expect that,
So you
did
don't
you,
look
Chase?
like you don't look like a baby boomer.
I like that. I like that.
Chase is the charmer of the table.
Oh, that's
Asking for
always
forgiveness already.
Always. There you go. I use a good moisturizer.
So, at a larger level, in working with agriculture and with a university, we would, as libertarians, say, hey, we want to be completely devoid of government and live in a vacuum where it doesn't exist, and everybody makes their own decisions, and we voluntarily associate and do things.
That's our utopia that exists only in those video games
that,
I was talking about
that
earlier.
doesn't exist in the real world that we're
Right.
in.
Right.
So we live in the world of the possible, and that's why I'm involved with P-Carrot, so that I can be involved in the conversation and understand and get and educate myself, because we don't just get to live on voluntary island.
Right.
What is there any level of a university that is not tied to government? You're at a state college, so a portion of tuition is paid by the state of Indiana.
No.
Well, no, it's a state-funded school.
Yeah,
The tuition
dollars.
doesn't, but there are other facets of the university that are,
Right.
that are carried by this school, by the state rather. I guess what I'm saying is there's not an easy way to get to a totally private education system. You're going to have public universities.
I hope.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I hope.
When you have public universities, then you're going to be having interactions with government. So then you end up with people that have I assume I know you have state level people because I met them. You have people that are interacting with the legislature, which is setting a set of funding for the university.
Right.
And then doing it at the federal level as well.
Right.
So just some insight into what kind of things that those people get involved in, and what they're setting priorities for the university, and then explaining that to the people that write the budgets for the schools.
Sure. In terms of the state and with state and federal, the College of Agriculture is the one that is most tied to government because of the federal piece of legislation, two federal pieces of legislation that fund us. The Smith-Lever Act, which funds the Extension Service, and the Hatch Act, which funds the research component. So we are more closely tied than any other college at Purdue
To the federal government.
to the federal government. Now, there's a caveat with those federal pieces. They must be matched by state dollars. So that automatically ties us then to the state government. There must be at least a one-to-one match. In Indiana, we get more than that. So, there's an automatic tie for the College of Agriculture that simply does not exist for liberal arts, for the College of Science, engineering, all those other pieces. So we have people that understand all of those things, and just by nature of that world, our faculty are much more savvy many times about those relationships because they're familiar with them. They work with them. So that's really the history of government relations at Purdue really has its roots in the College of Agriculture for that reason. John Hicks, who I think was probably the first, I don't know if John originally was the vice president. I think he was an assistant to the president. And then John was actually acting president at one time. But he was a professor of agricultural economics. And he understood government expenditures, but he also understood the pieces that helped to fund the university. So John went there. John Huey after him, same thing, professor of agricultural economics. And then later, Terry Stree, who had been the director of Ag Services and Regulation, really in charge of our state level advocacy in the College of Agriculture. Terry Stree moved over, worked with John Huey, and later became the vice president for government relations for Purdue. So that's really the first history of government relations at Purdue came from our college because of that close relationship. But so the things, though, that we would look at, I mean, there are, like everything else, there are regulations that come down the pike that affect the university. We had a coal plant. So regulations, at one point I remember being on a conference call with federal relations from Purdue, and we had somebody whose job was to worry about those regulations that impacted the universities because this coal plant thing.
A university is basically its own city.
It's a little city. We've got a police department, we've got a fire department, all of that, a power plant, everything. And so when that came into being, there are people that have to pay attention to that at the federal level as well as at the state level. And then at the state level, there are some functions in Indiana that are very unique to the College of Agriculture and to Purdue. And because for many years, Indiana did not have a Department of Agriculture. When Mitch Daniels was governor, he implemented a Department of Agriculture, instituted that for the first time. Prior to that, in most states, let's back up, most states, the regulatory functions that are, for feed, seed, fertilizer, pesticides, all those things.
They belong to the land-grant university.
In Indiana.
Okay.
Most states, they belong to a Department of Agriculture that is political. It's an elected Secretary of Agriculture that controls that. In Indiana, all of those regulatory functions are under the office of the Indiana State Chemist. And by law, the Indiana State Chemist must be a tenured professor of biochemistry at Purdue University. And
Really?
so all of those departments, the feed, seed, fertilizer, pesticide regulation, is all underneath the office of the Indiana State Chemist. And that is at Purdue. And so those are fee-based services. So people who own seed companies have to pay, their seed has to be properly labeled, all of this kind of thing. We have inspectors that do that. But any of those services for inspection or whatever, those things are fee-based. And so those fees are approved at the state. And so that's one of the things that the Director of Ag Services and Regulations works with, because that person acts as the Dean of Agriculture's liaison for those functions. The other piece of that regulatory piece lies in the College of Veterinary Medicine, and that's the Animal Disease and Diagnostic Laboratory, which is obviously very important in terms of monitoring and helping to educate people about animal diseases, and because some animal diseases can be passed to people, others have impact on food safety.
We could lose a huge food. If we had something happen in a hog operation, all of a sudden,
kinds of things.
the world food supply is in danger.
All kinds of bad stuff
And
can
just
happen.
listening to you talk earlier, you said that you thought about starting a podcast, and you ought to do that.
I told you, Donya's.
I've learned so
Donya's
much
got it.
already.
Well, good.
We're
I'm
only
glad.
45 minutes in.
My mission is complete.
Poor Donya. I listened. I asked a question about hemp seed to John Baugh, the state fellow,
The Director of Ag Services and Regulation at Purdue.
who works with the state level.
Right, right.
And we were having a legislative conversation, and I said, "Well, what about hemp in Indiana?" And poor John, it was a 20-minute spiral down, and it came back to it came back to the seed commissioner. And
right.
right now, there's
Right.
the way the state has things set up. There's a bottleneck that comes back to the seed commissioner, and they're worried because there's federal regulation. If they would get out of the way, then that product could exist legally in Indiana, and the state could approve it.
Yeah, because see that's the other thing is because we get federal funding, we can't be in violation of any federal laws, and so I don't understand all the ins and outs, but the hemp industry and there's a real issue there that we have to be concerned about.
If there's some federal clarification and that gets dealt with, we could catch
Right.
up with Kentucky.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
Henry County and Indiana's farmers could potentially start to
Yeah,
participate
and
in that
see,
product.
and where
project.
that's the one thing in my 28 years of living in Indiana that I've ever known about where having the regulatory function at Purdue, at the land-grant university, hindered an industry rather than helped it. In most cases, having it apolitical is a very good thing.
Yeah, where Kentucky has an elected agriculture.
It's in
head.
their Department of Ag.
Yep.
And so the governor down there can figure out if they want to do this, and they're not at risk of losing federal dollars for a university.
But it would be crushing
Man,
to a
if-
university if
Oh.
that happened, because you've got
We couldn't.
yeah.
We just can't. I mean, or
It's-
they can't.
it's too
They
much of a
can't.
risk.
They can't.
If just you asking the question took 20 minutes, imagine how long the legislative process is going to take.
Yeah.
Notice I said is going to take. Yeah.
It will be dealt with. It will be dealt with because I was just reading the CBD business now is $1 billion business.
They sell it at our barbershop now.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And, I mean, I have, friends who swear by it in terms of, topical creams and all those kinds of things,
Yeah, and
but
there's-
it's huge.
We posted another article on our page today that was talking about CBD oil and how there's still a negative stigma attached to it because it's derived from marijuana or hemp, and people think people
it has-
aren't educated about it, don't think that, and they think that
Yeah.
it gets you high.
It has none of the
think-
THC.
I
I think in the
wish.
last I think in the last 12 to 24 months, most people have gotten to understand that.
Yeah.
Where you can go talk to the average
This was
the average person, and they're actually going to
that
understand
they understand the difference between
between CBD oil,
CBD oil.
and cannabis, or
Yeah.
CBD oil and
Right.
and THC.
and the derivation of it, that
Yes.
that it's the non-intoxicant.
Yes.
yeah.
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 So
I think
the
that
governor himself last week said he's ready to start considering medicinal marijuana.
he
So
did on the
thank
Hammer and
God.
Nigel show.
we're coming.
Bring us the
close-
weed. I have
Like
back
wind
pain.
farms.
We're
That's
coming
supposed to help
closer
with
and closer
CBD,
and
man.
closer to some
You
of
can
these
already get
becoming
that.
I have the
marketable
lotion.
products,
Right.
It's
right.
pretty nice.
which is going to help
Well,
Indiana farmers.
Exactly. I mean, agriculture diversification of crop production is very good
Yeah,
for
not a
agriculture.
bad thing.
Oh, always it's good. I mean, we've looked at our farm over the years. We've looked at opportunities, and some of them haven't come through. We've grown specialty crops just in corn and soybeans thus far, but we did come very close one time to getting a green bean contract with a company out of Canada, and but anything a farmer can do to diversify themselves is insulation against a bad economic situation or bad weather situation. I mean, anything you can do to diversify crops is good.
One of our co-hosts is Cade Koger. His family is at least a fourth generation farm, if
He's
not.
a fake farmer.
He's a fake farmer. The Kogers
Inside
are.
joke.
He's
He got called a fake farmer on one of our Facebook live streams one time because
Oh, my.
his family was in favor of wind turbines, and they
Well,
no- my.
he
well,
got called a fake
and-
farmer because he
Because
can
of
go on,
that?
he can
No.
go on vacation and he can afford a motorcycle, and
he's
that's
a fake
not
farmer
how
because he doesn't have an old Massey Ferguson. He has modern farming equipment,
Yeah.
and it's not
He
like
has
what
a
his-
tractor with a
Yeah,
cab.
it's not like his grandfather had. Yeah,
Oh
that's
my.
that's why
well,
he's a fake farmer.
we're fake farmers too. Then,
of course you are.
Of course we are.
Yeah,
That's good. Proud of it,
You're
by
also
the way.
you're also probably doing 4 times the volume with half the manpower that they were 40 years
Absol-
ago.
We farm the farms of I think 6 families.
Yeah.
My husband does,
And he, by
Wow.
the way, he does it with
with one full-time person.
yeah, but he doesn't have the he doesn't have mobility like some do.
That's correct. My husband's in a wheelchair. He's
Yeah.
a paraplegic, so he farms the farms of 6 families with one hired person. I mean, obviously we have other people during busy times, but
Right. Temporary seasonal help,
Yeah.
right?
So anyway, the Cade's family, they've diversified, as you were talking about, where they have a row crop operation like many
Okay.
do. They have a produce farm stand, and they have a beef cattle operation. So they do all three of those, and then when one doesn't do as well, they've got other options. Well, you talked about the regulation side, and Dakota had in our show notes who regulates agriculture, and he mentioned the USDA, the EPA, and FDA.
Those are the big three that I thought of, that I could think of. And well, I guess my biggest question was, there's a lot of attempted central planning that goes on in the world of agriculture.
Right.
That I have learned recently, and it's basically different agencies trying to decide, okay, this is where we need this many crops going here, and just like how the governor just met with some governor type person in Canada.
Winnipeg.
The past, yes, and they were talking about how the trade between there and Indiana has grown by 36% since 2013. So there's a lot of attempted central planning that goes into agriculture. Am I wrong, or?
And I would call that central planning. I would call that growing markets. I mean, what they were actually doing was trying to develop market opportunities for Indiana products. And so that's a lot of the relationship building that goes on. I don't think there is the central planning. If it happens through influencing behavior of producers, primarily through conservation programs, those kinds of things where marginal lands over time, there have been a number of conservation programs that have paid incentives for people to take marginal land out of production and conserve it
And send
in
it back
some
to
way,
forest or
or
yeah.
grasslands or whatever.
Is that how we got the buffalo up in northwestern Indiana?
I don't know about that. But the other thing that we've done is try to influence behavior in terms of water quality, in terms of conservation programs where we have counties, county soil and water conservation districts participating and helping farmers to develop grass waterways and adopt conservation farming practices, those kinds of things. So influencing behavior is
Okay.
what I would
and
say.
whenever they're trying to,
That did go terribly wrong.
You need to grab you something.
Yeah, if you want to give me a paper towel from the other room. I opened a Guinness, and it got
it
exciting.
is everywhere. His
really
shorts
ugly.
are soaked
That's
now.
really ugly.
Oh no.
Sarah's not going to let me in the door.
So whenever
I'm
you
going to have to do
say,
my own laundry.
yeah, whenever you say that they're incentivized or they're influencing behavior, I'm assuming that they're applying some sort of an incentive for the farmers
Right.
to follow what they perceive as the best protocol or the safest protocol, right? So how do they incentivize the farmers to?
Well, for instance, there might be a conservation reserve program that would incentivize if you've got X number of acres that are less productive and you will take those out of production. At times in our history, we've had government to say, we have these huge crop surpluses, so how do
Okay.
we reduce that? And can we do that in a way that's helpful in other ways? And so providing conservation lands would be a thing that is environmentally helpful.
That's where in the 1980s you had programs where people were paid to not.
That's where you hear about
Yeah,
people being paid not to farm.
ground.
That doesn't really happen now, to my
Yeah.
knowledge. We have situations where we can't participate in government programs that are the safety net programs if we don't do things according to some prescribed measures. Like if we farmed in a very irresponsible way, we could lose our opportunity. I don't know all the details of that, so this I've already gone past what I know.
There's probably nobody that knows all of the details of all of these things because
Yeah.
it's somewhat complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very
quite a
complicated,
bit.
as
But
we're learning.
yeah, but that's how farming would be. That's one instance. Now, farmers who produce food for consumption, there's a lot more things going on because we've had a lot of situations. For instance, you're no doubt familiar with the melon situation
melons
in
or
southwest Indiana a few years ago when we had there was a contamination issue with a processing an on-farm processing situation, and so that's where you get a lot of things that have come out in terms of regulating farms and how they handle foods. I think that's probably a good thing because I don't think that everybody knows necessarily the safest way to do things. I think that we have to teach people.
That's where the education. Outbreak.
Yeah, what's the best way? And especially like if I'm a new grower. Okay, how do I do this? How do I set this up? What are the best practices? What are the best practices? And so when this melon scare happened, one of the things I actually knew the woman who did this research. She went down, she called me and asked me, who's a melon person I can talk to? Well, we had a person who had been on the Dean's Advisory Committee. I put her in contact with them because she had I think it was a BSL-3 lab greenhouse, whatever the highest level of contaminant confinement is in terms of safety. So she could actually use some of those.
She was a control environment.
Yeah,
basically.
she could have in her greenhouse. She could infect plants with these things and keep them confined. And so but she wanted to do that in a way that mimicked how these plants would actually be produced so that her research would be valid. And so she worked with the producers to say, help me design my program here. But she was working with some sponsored research with Dole and some others to help develop some novel sanitizing methods for produce, because she actually found in her research that I think it was E. coli that she infected seed with.
She infected the melon seed?
No, tomato seeds in this particular case. And
but still, tomato seeds with E. coli?
Yeah, she and through wash water. Think about how tomato seeds are. And so for seed production, you would wash off flesh off of the seeds to produce them to sell to, John and Jane Gardner to plant in their backyards.
Shout out to John and Jane Gardner.
Yeah, if that
Probably of Nicetown, Indiana.
Yeah, if that wash water is infected with E. coli, the seed industry had always said they couldn't be a source of contamination for these food pathogens. She showed that if you used infected wash water, up to 30% of the tomatoes would be infected internally.
What? That's crazy.
Wash it all you want to, it ain't coming out.
That's nuts. From the seeds?
Yep.
How does it survive that long? From the seed to germination
Dude,
to
I'm just
harvest?
telling you the research. I don't know that.
It's just crazy. I need to.
Up to
I want to know more.
30% of the fruit could be infected internally. And she actually had to develop some really novel ways to slice into that fruit, because think about if you slice into the fruit, that knife can infect,
Anything.
can take a pathogen
Unless
into the
it's
flesh.
Purely sanitized. You're doing it in a vacuum chamber.
But she actually had to develop some ways to stabilize that tissue, to freeze it, and do some other things, I think, that ensured she was not.
She wasn't going to contaminate it.
She
when
wasn't
she cut
contaminating
it, and she
her
wasn't going
sample.
to be picking up whatever was
Or
on the
something
knife.
else, that she wasn't going to be contaminating it, that she was actually getting valid research. But she showed up to 30% of the fruit.
Wow,
could be
that's
infected.
crazy.
Yeah.
That
I'm never
just
eating
totally
fruit
blows my
again.
mind.
Well, she does a program. She did for some pea carrot groups. Actually, I took her to do some programs, and she did one. It was called "What Evil Lurks in the Hearts of Romaine," and
Well, see, I've heard that lettuce can be pretty bad.
Lettuce and spinach are the
yeah.
two that you see. It's arbitrary from my
Right.
end, but
Which sucks.
those
I love
are two
lettuce
that you
and
see.
everything.
but that's the ones
being
that seem
recalled
to
all
be
the time,
that
or
cause
very
a
often.
lot of the food safety issues in the country.
It's not uncommon to
But-
go to a restaurant. Oh, I'm sorry,
So-
we're all out of lettuce right now.
Well, let's circle back to federal monies and why it's important then. See that all of us care that our food supply be safe. And so while your utopia island, everybody's, making their own free will choices, just because somebody's a nice person and they've got a great smile doesn't mean that they're producing the safest food for my baby.
And we don't necessarily have, at this point, we don't have traceability into, I know that crop was raised at a facility in California, and I can trace back to the farmer and know who did it. We don't necessarily have that visibility. So it's not, you don't have the brand awareness or ability to know that
There's
this,
a lot more of that than you think.
well, from the consumer level. As a consumer, I can make a
Right.
decision and say, hey, I know that this is Guinness Drought that I'm drinking,
Right.
and I trust the Guinness brand.
Right.
You don't necessarily have name brand manufacturers for on consumer labeling
Right.
for lettuce
Right.
or
Right.
spinach. You're buying the spinach that's sold at Kroger or Aldi or Marsh or
and
wherever.
If you're,
but if,
and if you're
if
buying
spinach,
the bulk,
if
especially.
spinach starts hospitalizing people and they start getting sick, and then all of a sudden all the media is going to pick it up.
But
This
what I'm saying
spinach
is
is making people sick.
our
and
model
you're not going to buy
knows-
any spinach anymore.
our model knows that there's a problem with, if there's a problem with Diet Dr. Pepper, people say, well, don't buy Diet Dr. Pepper.
Right.
It could cripple an entire industry when it happens with spinach.
Exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
have the brand
Because
awareness.
everybody stops buying all spinach.
Exactly.
Not just the spinach that came from Yuma, Arizona.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say
yeah.
is you
Spinach
don't have.
sucks anyways.
It's difficult for
Take
markets.
that back. How dare you?
In the libertarian world, markets decide, hey, there's a problem with Aquafina water. We're not going to buy Aquafina water.
Right.
Well, you don't have that ability with
with
tomatoes.
with produce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to
produce
have to wait and
is
listen to
brand.
what Steve Horwitz says about this.
That's fine. Steve Horwitz is an economist at Ball State.
Yeah.
Who we've had on the show a number of times. All right. Anything else on the ag side, Dakota, that you want to cover that's high level we haven't gotten to? Because we're right at 60-minute mark, and we want to cover a couple of these local issues.
Yeah.
As I feel like
Not
there's
really.
gonna be some fun
I'm
to have.
pretty sure that she did. I basically I had a whole list that you'll see on your show notes of things that I wanted to talk about, and you have, without me even asking, you've touched on them. It's like you were the most well prepared guest
savant.
ever.
I'm a savant when it comes to talking about the land grant university. No,
Yeah, you, should,
I am
you
an-
really should start that podcast.
I
I'm
am an
telling you.
apostle. I think that the land grant universities were the single best idea that our government's ever brought forth because it made education egalitarian.
And they go back to the 1860s?
Yes, that's correct.
I remember I was in the Latta games. Do you remember Latta?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I was in charge of Latta games when I first started at Purdue. yeah.
Probably 96, 97.
That's
Henry County had a Latta
Probably
group.
about the last time we
I
did
was
Latta
probably
games.
at the tail end of Latta. And I don't think we even competed. We just spent a lot of time at the office building here preparing.
All of those question banks
They were
in
yours.
my office. You bet.
Man,
You bet.
I could still tell you that Thomas Jefferson invented the wood moldboard plow or whatever year that was. We spent a lot of time practicing.
Oh
Dakota.
yeah. Oh yeah.
That's so yeah. We learned a lot about.
But the
when
land grant
universities came along.
universities. A friend of mine said it so eloquently one time. He said the land grant universities were brought to bring education to the sons and daughters of the toilers, those who worked, because prior to the land grant system, education was the purview of the wealthy, and it was the patrician class that educated their children. The working class people did not educate their children. They couldn't afford to. There was no place for them to go. And the land grant system changed that forever. And it changed my life forever. And as I tell people, I was a first generation college graduate. And when you change when someone goes to college and they're the first one in their family, it doesn't just change their life, it changes their family.
Change the family tree.
You change the family entirely because from that point on, everybody has a different aspirational level
My sister and I are the first two in our family to get our bachelor's degrees.
And it changes everything for the whole family. So I can't say enough good things about the fact that
So
we have this
with
opportunity.
that being said, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is higher education a right? Do you think it should be a right? Because we know it's not a right because it's not in the Constitution. But do you think that it should be?
I lean to the libertarian in terms of making things right.
Yeah.
I think that that's the very strong way to put that. I think access to education is important, and I think it should be a societal aspiration. I
Okay.
think not a right, but a societal aspiration.
But we've
would be
come a
about
long
way to
way.
put it.
To make education widely available.
You've got-
Available.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We have constitutionally guaranteed public education in the state of Indiana.
Yep.
Ivy Tech is very, very, very affordable at the community college level for your first 2 years. Purdue University is a public school that has held tuition firm for 5 years, 6 years,
Six
somewhere in
now.
that
I
range.
think it's 6 now.
I don't know that there's another place where you can make education more affordable without making
Right.
it free than the state of Indiana and the work
Right.
that's been done here, which Mitch Daniels has been a big part of that in the
at
time he's been at the school.
And at the quality that it is. It's
Yes.
not just education, it is a high quality education.
I don't know that I would want anybody having truly free education because you don't have skin in the game. But I think
Amen.
it's achievable right now with the system that we have. And Purdue has made great. One of the reasons that people have been battling student loan debts and the libertarians talk about this issue with student loans is we give anybody money at any level to continue to accumulate student loans, which then drives your tuition prices
You are
up, which then
guaranteed a student
causes
loan.
this out of control student debt where people leave with $100,000, $200,000 or more in
Student
student loan
loans
debt.
were the only loans that were ever granted without any look at repayment capacity.
Yep.
And so that just, I mean, it didn't matter at all. And so this back a boiler plan that President Daniels has put in place where people
you
can
invest in a
you
future Boilermaker.
invest in a student and you're paid back a percentage of that student's earnings.
I didn't know about that.
Their
That's pretty
future
neat.
earnings. Yeah, so it's a program that that President Daniels, and actually he had to get some special things cleared at federal levels.
Yeah, I would imagine.
To make that possible because we do receive federal dollars. You know, we are a granting agency for the federal loan and grant programs. So he had to work with the federal government. Another way he had to work with them to be sure that this would not put Purdue in violation of some things and lose some other important funds. But it's a really important way to make people look at the opportunities that your education is going to provide for you, that you don't just keep amassing debt in the name of getting a degree.
We have,
Correct.
unfortunately, we have a system that's set up where you'll go to school to become a public teacher, a public school teacher. And in Indiana, you get hired in, and you're making between $30,000 and $35,000 a year as a public school teacher. And it's just, and then you realize, oh my gosh,
yeah.
this isn't going to cut this. You know, this isn't
Some
enough money to
over-
pay the bills I have, and I'm never going to get out of this hole.
And over 50% of them in the first 5 years decide that that's not the career for them. That's why my sister is going to school to be a teacher. And she has got a scholarship from the state of Indiana that is practically full ride. Well, and the stipulation of that, knowing the 5-year statistic, was you have to teach in the state of Indiana for 5 years.
Okay.
Otherwise, you have to pay us back.
Right.
So
right.
it was that was something that I learned, and it was that's kind of says something about not only higher education, but the education system in its entirety. So like we have, I put down little snippets about the Department of Education here. It was established in 1979, and everybody wants to talk a bunch of crap about Betsy DeVoe, who is President Trump's
Education
yes,
secretary.
education secretary appointee, and she brought a lot of attention to the Department of Education. And I thought, sitting out here as a libertarian outsider without any skin in the game, which is the nice thing about being a libertarian.
Dakota's a
because-
trade school guy.
Yeah, I am. I didn't go to college. I joined a construction union instead, and they paid for my college.
Right.
And I learned a trade instead, and it has worked out fantastically for myself. But on the flip side, Betsy DeVoe brought a lot of attention to the Department of Education, and a lot of people didn't know anything about the Department of Education, knowing that it was only set up, in 1979. What do they do? And that was one of my biggest questions. And having you in here answering a lot of those questions, some of their functions aren't evil government functions, right?
Well, I haven't talked anything about the Department of Education.
No, this must be Department of Agriculture.
Everything
we
I've
talked a little
talked
bit-
about was really based in the Department of Agriculture and through the
But
funding that
we talked
flows
about
through them.
needing about federally funded schools and the thing. So I guess that's what I
Yeah,
was talking
okay,
about.
yeah,
Not
but
talking
in
about the
terms, yeah, but in
Department of
terms of the
Education
Department of
necessarily.
Education and its mission, I really haven't addressed that at all because I'm
No.
not familiar with that in the least.
That's not the Purdue University. Your model is through the USDA.
Right.
Yeah.
So something that Donya is actually going to care about, I think. I think she's going to have an opinion because
I have an opinion about everything.
yeah, there we go.
You know that. That's why you had me here.
Everybody does. Everybody does.
I live on the south side of Newcastle, and INDOT and the city of Newcastle partnered together, and we had a student that lost their life about 10 years ago in front of an elementary school because there weren't walking paths at Westwood Elementary. I want to say that's the timeline. I could be a little hazy on that,
pretty
but it's
close to
probably
that.
5 to 10 years ago. So Riley Elementary is another one, and it's in a neighborhood. It's the elementary school that my future children theoretically would go to. Should I?
Do you want to make
should-
an announcement?
I have no announcement to make at this time, but in theory, that would be the school. So my house is about a half mile south of these. So there are some sidewalks that were built on Riley Road, which is our east-west street, and then Main Street, which is about a mile. We'll say it's a mile to the west of State Road 3, which is our main boulevard. State Road 3 is like a 5-lane wide. It's like
It's a busy
it's a
thoroughfare.
busy thoroughfare, and then Main Street is. It's like a secondary road. Main Street goes through downtown, but it's a secondary street.
Most people don't realize it's Main Street.
Yeah. There are like
I
four
didn't
north-
until tonight, and I've been to Newcastle many times.
Exactly.
And I didn't know.
So Main Street has sidewalks now from Riley Road to the south to pretty much the end of the city, close. Comes with about 800 feet of where my neighborhood starts. So there's a little bit of distance, but I am a total beneficiary of these things being built. So I'm pretty happy about it as a guy that lives down there. But the complaining on the internet, Chase,
Yeah.
has been
Jer,
unbelievable.
I've seen a picture of the walkway. Was that your dog?
It was my dog, yes.
It's gotten a lot bigger than the last time I saw it.
Because
Anyways,
he didn't come to the party.
Yeah, if you'd show
I
up
was
once in
in
a while, Chase.
Chicago.
I want to
okay.
talk about that after a little while. You're
But
Chicago's fan.
anyways, I saw the picture of the sidewalk. I think it looks great. I don't know why people are complaining.
So we have a sidewalk that was
because-
built that is not concrete.
Okay.
Yes.
It's asphalt. It's not done yet.
What's the
There's still-
difference, Chair?
asphalt is made from rock and oil. Concrete is made from
Cement.
Okay.
or cement
Yes.
and aggregates. So they're
Right.
different. One is an oil-based product.
I
and the
Cement
other
holds
one's
the
not.
aggregates
Notorious for saying concrete.
One is black, one
and
is gray.
cement.
So as a general rule, most people expect sidewalks to be concrete. The city found out that INDOT, in an effort to actually make this project happen with the money they had, they went and looked at an alternate. They trimmed out some of the distance that doesn't take it all the way to my neighborhood. They made a change, and now it's an asphalt sidewalk or
Because
walking path.
it did come from a grant from the state of Indiana that was I think it's titled like Safe Way to School.
Safe
grant.
walkways to school, which is
Yeah.
because we had this fatality about 10 years ago. The city looked into it, I assume.
So they're like, whoa,
And
this
found-
is a
found
busy
funding.
road because, I mean, I'm one of the people that takes that road to work every morning. So it's like, this is a busy intersection and a very busy walkway for students that are trying to get to the education.
Get to the school.
Trying to get to their school
And you have-
riding their bikes, walking. And one of the biggest complaints that I saw was sidewalks are concrete, walkways are asphalt. You told us we were getting a sidewalk not a walkway. I thought that was pretty funny.
I'm just
Now,
saying.
there was nothing here before, Donya.
It looks easier to ride your bike on, to skateboard on. I like it.
Or to
As
walk
a,
your
as a
dog.
Or
homeowner
to
that
walk
would
your
be,
dog.
as a homeowner that has a sidewalk in front of their property right now, I can tell you that it is my responsibility to do the upkeep.
You have to shovel it in
and-
the winter.
Yeah. Well, and if it gets to where it is right now and it has cracks on it, it is my responsibility to then replace that sidewalk. So, as a person who lived there, I would be going, thank you, because sealing asphalt.
Sealing asphalts are easier than just
Very-
going out there with your bags of Quickcrete or bringing in a concrete truck.
Yes.
Plus, I want to make a point. Do you remember those shoes, the Heelys? With the little wheels on the back and you could
Oh,
skate
yeah,
with your
yeah.
shoes? Well, I had a pair of those when I was 12. And it is very hard to skate on the
concrete. Yeah.
concrete sidewalk.
You almost say
where you've got
cement?
all
I
those
almost said
expansion.
cement.
You've got all those expansion joints.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
You're right.
hard. But on the cement, it'd be awesome. You could skate for
right.
days.
So the next controversy that we have.
So this the conversation we want to have though is, all right, you ingrateful people.
you turds.
Would you rather not have any walking path at all, or would you rather have something that allows you to go downtown? You have, if you and your husband wanted to take to travel by not a car, so on foot or on wheels, you would now have a path that connects you to downtown Newcastle, to go to our
Solidarity.
biggest park, to go to
In a
downtown.
wheelchair, asphalt
It-
would be a lot easier.
Exactly.
Yes.
I can.
Same thing as the wheelie shoes. A
That's true.
wheelchair,
That's true.
asphalt would be easier.
Kirsten Kronk, a listener, Patreon subscriber, she says that the stroller for her child rides like a dream on the asphalt. So, yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Nice.
These guys.
Jared, where are the age group of these people complaining? Are they like, do they actually go outside? I'm just asking for a friend.
Now you know I'm on the ballot in a couple of months, right, Chase? And I'm trying not to
All right,
offend
Dakota,
anybody.
what is the age group for these people?
I can't say most of them don't have actual profile pictures.
There's a certain contingent of people that no matter what you do, any improvement that you make is wrong, and we shouldn't do it. And,
Why you
and
keep trying to change things in Henry County? We're good enough like we are.
That's just the reality of what.
Put the doughboy back where it belongs.
I'm happy we have them. Is it perfect? Probably not. But we are also just throwing rocks at glass houses before a project is even complete. People were mad about the seeding. They're still actively working on the project. It's not done. And calm down. It's going to be better. People are saying that their property values are going down because they have a sidewalk in front of their home now.
Oh, my.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
We are full of.
Oh, my.
Donnie, come spend some time in Henry County.
Donya, if you
We have
ever
a lot
wa-
of fun here.
If you ever watch Parks and Recreation, the people of Newcastle are like the town goers in Parks and
Yeah.
Recreation that would just yell about.
Sir,
yell
so what
about-
exactly are you afraid of? I don't know. I'm just scared.
They found a sandwich in the park and it had mayonnaise on it, and they don't like mayonnaise, and that's their problem. All right, the other major controversy we had this week,
Oh, Jared.
Monday night, the Councilman Jeff Hancock, who runs the greatest Jiffy Lube in the history of all Jiffy Lubes on State Road 3 in Newcastle,
I'm sure he appreciates that.
he changes my oil in my company car all the time, or his people do. He doesn't do it himself. Jeff doesn't have to get his hands dirty. He's an executive, okay? Hi, Jeff. The Newcastle Theater, the movie theater, it's an old historic thing. Chase and I went to a movie last year because my wife refuses to go see Star Wars movies with me. Chase and I go to those together.
It wasn't last year. It was
It was
earlier
this summer.
year. Yeah.
This summer, you and I went to
This summer.
the historic Castle Theater before it
It
closed.
was awful.
And there were it was you, me, and 3 couples that talked through the whole movie.
No, okay. There are a total of 6 people in the theater. 7 if you include the worker. 2 are these really old people that talked nonstop throughout the whole movie. He
They were
even
old,
an-
so they talked loud,
He
right?
answered his phone and he said, "Hey, hold on a minute. I thought he was going to take it outside. He didn't. He kept having the conversation during the movie." And then, like, a mother and son who started out behind us, but the people were talking so loud, they had to move all the way in the front of the theater. It smelled weird.
And then, so take this and take your experience and then compare that to the experience that you can have in Muncie, where you can walk
Exactly.
in to a 10 screen theater and you can get a drink. You can get a beer, a gin and tonic.
Reclining
Yeah.
chairs.
Nobody
Go
has
in.
any business drinking spirits or beer in a movie theater.
Oh no, you
Come on
can
now.
there.
And
I'm
listen,
telling you right now.
I was very bummed out the first time the castle closed. Like, what was that, 10 years ago?
Sure.
Like 2012. I was bummed out then. But, after that, I was okay with it. We went to Muncie. It was
so
fine.
Monday we found out that Jeff Smiley, local businessman who owns Northfield Park, where the YMCA is and where the Farm Bureau building is, he has entered an agreement with a movie developer that they're going to bring in a 8 to 10 screen movie theater here in Newcastle, which of course has been controversial because, damn it, we can't have anything new.
Well, I saw, and this might have to be a tinfoil time episode, that there has to be something going on because there's no way that it was just circumstance that the Castle Theater closed and this got announced just a week later. So, yeah.
You know what
There's
pisses me off?
conspiracies cooking up that Jeff Smiley he was in the pockets of these people.
Nobody needs to watch 10 movies at one time. One screen
Yeah.
is enough, Dakota. You don't need choices
What
in
makes
your
me
life.
mad is the people who complain about it closing down never went there.
No one ever went there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't if it opened up again.
Yogi Berra said nobody went there. It's too busy.
If they had been going there, it wouldn't have closed.
Exactly.
Donya, what's the movie theater experience in Crawfordsville? Is there one? Do you guys have one?
Yeah, there is one, and I think they have. I haven't been there in a while. I'm trying to think. Do they have?
Don't let
a
it
couple
close,
of-
Donya. For the love of God.
Couple of screens. I don't know. Well, I forgot why I decided not to go there anymore. I think it was something about the popcorn. I can't remember why, but we don't go there anymore. But
They angered her.
yeah, I don't know. They got me irate about something, and I'm old, and I forgot why. But so I'm one of those old people, Chase. But
That's okay. I like you.
but
so-
I don't look old, so I'm okay, right? But no, so there is a movie theater there, and I think they have a couple of screens. It's not a big multiplex. The multiplex is in Lafayette, of course. So I live 8 miles north of Crawfordsville, 13 miles south of the south edge of Lafayette. So I have choices if I go to Lafayette. Guess where I go to the movies?
Lafayette.
You bet.
There you go. Well, it's optimistic. I'm
It's a free
excited.
market, baby.
I'm
The
excited
market
for Henry
provides.
County to have
That's
something
right.
come along.
That's right.
All right.
Wow. But the important lesson to learn is that all of these things that are happening right now are improvements. They are improvements that are happening in Henry County and Newcastle, which means that good things are happening. Which means, we just talked with John Kindred, who's going to be calling in maybe next week to give us another update on the real estate agents, the real estate market in Newcastle. Things are looking good, and we can keep on riding this wave as long as we don't elect people who have a negative outlook on our county and the things that are happening. Please do not let that happen.
You want to drop names?
That's all right. I'll keep the name dropping. I already got blocked from Facebook, so
Cade texted earlier, Cade Koger, and he said I can't comment because I've got a 72-hour ban on Facebook. So all he can do is text me. Poor Cade
Yeah.
is Cade's in Facebook purgatory. All right, we are about at that point of the show, Chase. You need to show Donya how it's done. Final thoughts are coming up here.
Okay.
We have floated the idea
Mm-hmm.
of you having your very own show on
Well-
a Saturday or Sunday morning here.
When I was
When
given the
a
idea.
young boy.
Yes. It wasn't going to be just me. It was you too, Jared.
Well, but it'll be the Chase Peyton show, and you will have some Dakota or myself,
It
some
wasn't.
some
Yes.
professional.
Okay, let's be honest. Chase Peyton didn't have this idea.
I didn't have this idea. I agreed to it. I think it is a great idea. We're going to sell some stuff. Not me personally, but if you have something you want to sell, whether it's a kid, a dog,
We're not doing human trafficking.
a
Chase.
lawnmower, I don't care if it's a bag of garbage. If you want to sell it, call in and we'll hook you up.
What's the name of that? What's the trade name?
I don't know yet.
So it's Tradio.
It's
Tradio.
Tradio.
You call,
That's
you
what it
call
is,
into the
yeah.
show and you say, I want to sell my lawnmower and I want $40 for it. And Chase writes down their phone number and he repeats that. And then the next person calls in and says, hey, I want to sell my 72 Buick. And Chase says, okay, we got a 72 Buick and call this number. And then you just keep track of it and
Yeah.
people have some fun.
I want to talk to some interesting people.
but we do need to name it.
That's one of the most popular shows on our radio station back home.
Exactly.
My parents never missed it. I mean, gotta listen and see. And and my dad ever had a goat for sale or whatever, he always called it. It was the Trading Post on there.
It's the
I'd love
Trading
to
Post.
sell
It's
someone a
so-
goat.
So
swap
Donya,
shop.
imagine how much better that could be with Chase sitting right where Jeremiah is sitting.
With video.
I'll wear a cowboy
yes,
hat.
Live on video.
on
You
Facebook.
could bring the goat in here.
Oh, I will
We
model
could
the goat.
milk a goat.
Don't-
We're in
I'm
the
not
studio.
going to milk it.
Donya, I've
Chase,
got skills.
if you bring a
I
goat
know.
in the
I used
studio,
to have a herd of
You're
Indian
out.
dairy
A
goats.
milking goat.
We could do. Brent Spicer's in the chat,
Miniature
and he
ponies.
says
I can just see it all now.
he says it
coming
could be the
right
Saturday morning
I would
chaser.
sell a miniature pony. I'd ride it for someone just to show it off.
Right.
But
parade
you
it
know,
back and
I'm
forth.
thinking what, maybe once, twice a month. I'm not doing it every week because I have commitment
We'll see.
issues. But
Oh, yeah, Katie Larson's mentioned that.
but no, I'm excited. Maybe we'll start it sometime
I like
soon.
that. I like Brantley's idea of the Saturday morning chaser.
Oh,
I like
okay.
it.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe or Sunday morning. We'll see. So you're on board.
I'm on board. It's gonna happen. I don't know when.
I'm
It's
going to
just
say
whenever
early
I can-
December, maybe
Yeah.
mid-November, early
And,
December.
That,
somewhere in
that
there.
works for me.
Jeremiah and I already talked about it. We're gonna take turns producing for you
Thanks,
because we
man.
don't want to get burnt out.
I don't blame you.
I want to be able to
Uh,
call in and sell some stuff. I got things to go.
Jeremiah's gonna do it the weeks that Audrey and I don't do tinfoil time.
No,
Okay.
maybe that's what we'll do. I think this has got possibilities,
I think it's got a lot of possibilities.
and you can always tip Chase.
Yeah, I do accept tips.
So I want to ask you. You were not at the We're Libertarians party
I
on
was
Saturday
not.
night.
I was in Chicago.
You went to Chicago,
Yes.
and you were going to ask Katie a question.
It wasn't that question.
Oh,
So, anyways, we took the train in.
Oh, did
and-
you?
Yeah, we took the train in, which
How was
was
the
a
train?
good call. It
you
wasn't
took
bad.
Amtrak out of Indianapolis.
No, we drove up to the dunes,
Okay,
and then we.
and you took the South Shore line in.
Yes.
Oh, nice. That would
It-
be a good trip.
Yeah, it was nice. It was like an hour, and then it takes you right into the middle of the city, and you get out. I was a little overwhelmed at first. I was like, "Where am I?
There's so many
This
people.
is a whole new world."
Is this your first time in Chicago?
No, I've been multiple times. I've been to New York City, but for some reason I was a little overwhelmed. I think it's because this was the first time when I was like on my own. I didn't have my parents with me. So we went to go see the Bean, which was awful.
Dakota
so
and I
many
went.
people.
So
Dakota
many
and I
people.
went in January, and it was
Way-
very, very few people.
Way overrated.
But the lake was a big block.
And
It was
then-
solid.
Chicago in the wintertime is the best time to go to Chicago because there's no one around.
Well,
and
yeah,
it's
because they
beautiful.
die.
yes.
It's beautiful in the winter. Chicago is absolutely beautiful in wintertime.
I thought we could be friends, but no.
It's over.
So
It's over.
She's got Georgia blood, Dakota. That's not happening.
So then my girlfriend decides she's hungry. So Dakota had mentioned this chicken place, and I was like, "Hey, we should go try that."
Did you walk there?
We walked there from the Bean.
Yeah.
Mind you, we had our backpacks with all our clothes in
Did
it.
you bring your weapon?
I pulled it up on my phone, and it said a 10-minute walk. It was not a 10-minute
Wrong.
walk.
No,
it was
wrong.
like a mile and a half to 2 miles away. It was awful. We were sweating. She was pissy at me. And once we got there, it was really nice, though. Really good chicken.
The neighborhood's not that great.
No, it's like
They've started developing it a little bit more now, but it's
What's the name of the
definitely
chicken
an
place you guys went to?
up and coming neighborhood.
See, when I was there, they had the Harvest Fest, so it was like just a
Was
hipster
Little Sebastian
area.
there?
Well, yeah, it's
The Harvest Festival.
I didn't hear about the Harvest Fest. We were just up like last month.
Yeah,
We walked 3 miles to Gus's. So I would take your 1.5 and double it.
well, see, on the way back, by the way, chicken was great. It was spicy. I knew it was going to be good as soon as they offered me honey.
yeah.
And then I was like, okay,
Did you get the collard greens?
I didn't.
How
I'd
should-
already eaten by
tell,
the time.
tell me about South chicken, Donya. How should chicken be prepared? What's
Fried.
good? Yeah, fried chicken. Should
Fried.
it have honey on it? Yeah,
That's good.
it's up to you.
I guess. I
Spicy
don't know.
fried
That's not
chicken
what
with
we do.
honey is delicious.
It's so good.
It sounds good, but
Do you need waffles?
no.
No.
It's
I-
pressure
I
cooked.
do love waffles.
So
Gravy?
they pressure cook it first, and
Okay.
then they deep fry it in
Okay.
this in like it's got to be animal fat because it's definitely not peanut oil.
Yeah.
And
If it's good, it's probably lard.
yeah,
So
and it's very spicy, and then you can drizzle it with some honey, and you
Oh.
get that spicy and
Sounds good.
sweet.
Sweet.
So
spicy, all right.
we had that, and then I was like, we're not walking again. So we Ubered, which Uber was relatively
you can't walk
cheap.
after eating Gus's. I'll
yeah,
tell you that.
Uber was relatively cheap. I think it was cheaper than in Nashville.
Yeah.
Like you ever paid for a single Uber on our Nashville
Paid
trips?
for a lot of Ubers on the Nashville trip. Thank you very much. When I was sober enough to order one, I was ordering one. So we Ubered to the Field Museum, and we saw a couple mummies.
You saw the mummy, and did you see what's the name of the dinosaur from South Dakota that's there?
Oh, Jess?
No.
Or something. The T-Rex?
Yeah, it's in the lobby.
We did see that, but
Sarah
they
and I
had
saw
moved it
that.
to a different place.
Really?
But we did get
It's a
to
very
see
famous
it.
dinosaur. Do you know this? Do you know the answer, Donya?
No.
It's a girl name.
Sue.
Sue.
There,
It is
uh,
Sue.
I did know that.
See?
It was in the back of my brain.
They found it in the
I'm old.
Badlands.
That's right.
Or in
was
Southwest
pretty cool.
South Dakota.
The mummies were pretty cool.
And then you followed my recommendation?
Yes, I
and
followed
you
your
went to Second
recommendation.
City.
That's what we did that night. It was an improv show. It was really funny. So that was my Chicago trip.
Was it a show or was it all improv?
It was all improv.
Really?
Yeah,
Do you see anybody think he's going to be famous? Did you say that's the funniest person I ever saw in my
a
life?
couple people,
Yeah.
like at least 3 of them.
Did you sit up close?
We were relatively close. We were like center in the middle of the stage, a couple rows back, and we had a table. So it was like the perfect spot to be in.
Awesome. Did you get involved in the show at all? Did you?
No, I did not want to be. Okay, so the guy started walking off stage, and we made eye contact, and I just gave him the creepy eyes, and I was like, "Don't come at me, bro." And he walked the other direction.
Comedy is one of my favorite things, and Sarah's as well. So have you ever been to Second City in Chicago?
No.
So it is where
I
a lot
know.
of the Saturday Night Live guys come from.
I know Second City, but
Yeah.
I used to watch. Actually, Second City had a TV show.
Yes, absolutely.
And
CTV
oh
out of
yeah,
Canada.
yeah, I used to watch it.
Rick Moranis and
Yep,
Dave
yep, that's
Foley
cool.
and those
It's
guys.
insane
Yeah.
on how many famous people came out of there.
Oh yeah, you look at their list of
Oh, they're-
alumni, and it's unreal.
It's like a who's who of
Yeah.
Yeah, of sketch comedy. Steve
Yeah.
Carell, and it's
everybody.
It's phenomenal.
I also had some good pizza. It was a good trip.
So
Good trip.
I definitely want to go back. Dakota and I have talked about going back.
Where'd you go to
in
get pizza?
January.
I don't remember the name of it.
Did you go
I
to
guess
Exchequer?
what?
Exchequer?
It wasn't
called
Exchequer. It was
Home
like
Run Inn?
Papa
La-
John's.
It was I don't know. Yeah.
That's all right.
Katie will comment eventually.
The two that I like are Exchequer and Home Run Inn. And they are very wildly different. The Exchequer is the classic, like, bread lasagna style pizza.
Yeah.
The deep
Just a-
dish.
Yeah, crazy deep dish. And then Home Run Inn has an ultra thin crust.
Ooh.
That's like just
See,
like on
I
a
feel like you
cracker.
go
I
to
love-
Chicago for the deep dish, though.
But I love thin crust pizza.
too.
And
I
I've
used
never
to go
had
for the
Home Run Inn.
Giordano's. Now we got it in Indy.
I'd much rather have like New York style pizza than Chicago pizza.
All right, are you done with your final thoughts?
Yeah, last one. Browns play tonight. You think they're gonna get their first win, Jared?
Yes, I do. They're going to beat the Jets.
They're gonna beat the Jets.
Are going to crash.
The beer fridges are gonna open all across the city, and there's gonna be a lot of drunk driving.
Fun times in Cleveland tonight.
Yes. All right, that's it.
All right, Donya, that's pretty much how it's done. We like to keep it a little tighter than that, but Chase was all over the place. You have anything to promote?
Did you say Cleveland earlier?
Yeah, Cleveland over New York.
Okay.
The Browns
The Browns. Cleveland Browns.
haven't won a game in 2 years.
Cleveland rocks. Yeah, but they didn't lose a couple weeks ago. so that was
They
good.
tied.
I want to promote that. Okay, if he's going to be doing a show,
Absolutely.
this whole idea of me doing my own podcast and telling stories, because I
Are they scary stories?
no, they're funny. I am a funny woman, dude.
People
and,
like me.
and they laugh at my stories because I've led an interesting life
No doubt.
and a funny life. So no, telling stories, because as you mentioned, that Southern accent, people like to listen, and people don't read. People are. I mean, we've dumbed down America. Nobody reads. So I love to write, but I think people would be more engaged if they listened, and I could engage an audience for my writing. So stay tuned.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
we will give
We'll help you out.
all of the knowledge we can, Donya.
Well, when I get my first book, I want to come here to promote it.
We will have
So
you back on,
I'll
no
be
doubt.
back, yeah.
As long as you make the drive.
But we
we'll
can
I'll
have
be
you back.
here.
We
I'll
can
be
give
here.
you some very basic equipment list and things to get you started, and
Yeah.
you don't have to have the camera and the lights and the studio and all of that. You can.
You need
get
that
started.
little box
You
over
need
there.
the little-
I got a
little
creepy
H6.
attic I could set up something really well. It'd be like all dark and just except my lights.
This you're experiencing the new studio now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe the number of high-profile candidates and sitting state legislators that came into Dakota's third third bedroom on the second floor of a home somewhere north of Q Avenue in Newcastle.
Yeah, it's
It
pretty
was amazing,
crazy.
but
Yeah.
it happened.
That was a selling feature.
That's
Trying
right.
to sell the house. It's like, hey, State Senator Mike Kreider's been
How
in
many
here.
people been here, right?
It's like Motown to me. I'm like,
yeah.
this house is got to have. It's going to have one of those little
Little plates on the front,
little
yeah,
plaque out
yeah.
front that says this is the original home, and it's
Here,
someday it'll-
here in 2017.
You need to develop the plaque. See,
I should.
you
I
should
really do.
You should start. With it while it's all fresh and you've got
So
all the
before-
lists and
before I
everything.
someday
sell
Mark,
it and
Mark
leave.
Shonor is going to be raising money to put a plaque in front of your old house.
Well, before I sell it, before I leave, I'm going to tap Connell
The
a brass
inaugural
plate in the
inaugural
basement.
studios, the site of the founding of the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast.
Exactly.
Here on these grounds.
This is it.
Yes.
Yeah. Jeremiah lost the backside of his hand carrying a washer and dryer. through the guest-
The boss himself
That's it.
shed his blood here.
Washer and dryer included.
I caused a number of property damage incidents. You saw me open a beer here in the mess I made tonight, so you
His
can only
mother,
imagine.
his own mother calls him a bull in a china shop.
So Donya chose to sit next to me on a plane once. Can you believe that?
No,
On purpose.
That's why whenever someone said that the asphalt for those new sidewalks was uneven, Jeremiah's like, I walked on it and I didn't trip, and I was like, well, if you walked on it and didn't trip, then
That's an incredible testimonial, right?
Exactly. I am injury prone, and I didn't notice any problem. So these people are just throwing rocks. All right. So we're going to check out Donya's podcast when we get that started. Dakota, final thoughts from you.
my final thoughts are, of course, to thank every single one of our Patreon donors. You are the people who keep this studio up and running. You literally keep the lights on. We used to joke and say that they kept the lights on, but now they actually do. So, yeah, thank you to every single one of you people out there that are giving us money every month. We are making great strides in the studio. We have a sink now.
It doesn't have a drain, but damn it, we have a
We
sink.
have a
No drain,
sink.
but a sink.
I was here putting up. I only got one blanket hung from the ceiling, but I was putting up some soundproofing tiles in the hot spots today. So hopefully the audio is a little bit better than episode 77. Next week on Tinfoil Time, if you wanted to, I can give you a little premonition here. If you want to jump on the Patreon and catch next week's Tinfoil Time, we are going to be covering Denver International Airport.
Boy.
I
That
thought you
place
just
is
promoted that for
freaky.
this last week.
Nope, we decided to change it because of Audrey's new job.
Is there a
I've-
last week?
No, there's not last week.
I've
Tinfoil
read a little
Time's
bit
every
about
other
this
week.
place, and it's pretty scary.
Denver International
Yeah,
Airport.
there's something going
Supposed
on
to be
there.
built by the Illuminati.
They built it like an hour and a half out of Denver, I heard.
There is a space lizard lair underneath it.
There's some really weird pictures.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Okay. I never
Uh-oh.
know.
So we're gonna be doing a deep dive into that and giving you guys the true story, just the facts, like what Donnie was talking about today.
So from my end, we have to thank Donya for coming and for following the I don't know if it's an expectation, but it's certainly something we appreciate of bringing a gift. Our guest bringing gifts. She brought us a poster of Bobby Knight wearing Purdue gold. That is
I've got mixed feelings about that.
Done that you don't have it on the air.
well. Go get that, Chase. Will you grab that real
I've
quick?
got
I'll
mixed
get it.
feelings
I'm-
about
He
it,
didn't-
Jared.
he doesn't have
Donya
to
will
walk
get
in
it, or
front
Chase
of
will
me.
get it. Chase doesn't have the headphones on because
Okay, there you
we don't have enough Patreon subscribers to buy Chase a set of headphones. That
We got
work.
to get a sponsor for his. For
So
his
we're gonna
headphones.
unfurl it. Chase, if you'll stand back behind us in front of the door, we can show it to
Everybody
the
can
to the
see
world.
the gift I brought.
Donya has brought us.
Dad will probably disown me.
Chase says his father's going to disown him. If you look on screen,
we
it
go.
is the man who left. Man, he was only. This is unreal.
the lights
Bobby
are
Knight
glaring.
left IU. I think in
they can see it
2000.
good.
So Dakota would have been 6 years old when Bobby coached his last game at IU.
Oh my!
Isn't that unreal?
Yeah, so he doesn't.
And-
he doesn't
and-
remember
and
the
you've
vitriol
had-
that this.
You've had a relationship with him of sorts. You
No.
ran the fish fry.
Yeah, but I didn't arrange that one.
Okay.
I
We're gonna
wasn't
give you credit.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in making those calls. I did meet him, and he, put his arm around me or something. I don't know, but that, I guess he's a big guy.
The Ag Alumni, every year there's a big event. It's usually at the State Fairgrounds.
That's correct.
It's called the Fish Fry,
The Ag Alumni Fish Fry.
and it's a fundraiser. and Bobby, or appreciation.
It's a gathering,
Yeah.
a gathering, a celebration
Oh.
of agriculture.
Tell me you don't shake them down for money at some point, at some level.
No, we don't.
Never.
No, that's
Wow, it's a safe place.
It's a cost, man.
We shake everybody down for money.
I wish it made. I wished for 28 years it made money,
I
but
can't believe you guys never shook them down.
no, but it's a great thing. But no, he and Gene Katie. Now Gene Katie, who I do have a wonderful relationship with, old friend, and I appreciate his. In fact, texted him this past weekend. He signed a basketball for a donor to the 4-H Foundation for us. So,
Very cool.
yeah, he's a really great guy who still takes care of all of our people.
And he's pretty close with the Purdue basketball program again now that Matt Painter's there, and he's
Oh yeah, and
one of his guys is coaching the
well,
team.
and seeing he was back in town this weekend, they brought him back from because he had to leave Myrtle Beach to be safe. He was going to stay, and it was actually a ag supporter, Todd Reed from down in Greensburg, who flew him out of Myrtle Beach last week, and he stayed till I think Tuesday. Maybe he went back home.
Very cool.
Yeah, so he was in town for the football game.
So we thank Donya for that. We are going to find a place to put that on display in the studio. Very excited about that. That is definitely our biggest poster we've had. We have a few that are around, but that is the largest gift we've received so far.
Okay.
In size.
Awesome.
Next week's show, we have Nan Polk and Kathy Hamilton coming on. Nan is with the newly reformed Henry County League of Women Voters. So Nan will be on with us next week, and then Kathy Hamilton is working with the Hope Expo or the Hope's
Initiative.
the Hope Initiative. There, thank you, and the Henry County Expo Center, which is going to be the new Henry County Fairgrounds that we're building.
Oh, great.
So they kicked off their capital campaign last night. It's about a $5 million project. They need to raise about $3 million to complete the project and get to where we have no debt when that's built. So Kathy's going to come on and explain that. And much of the extension program that we've talked about tonight is going to take place in that building. Once we move to Memorial Park, the Henry County Purdue Extension office is going to be located there, and that program is going to take place in that space. And it's going to be absolutely first class. Hendricks County, Indiana has a very similar facility. With an all
super fairgrounds.
yeah, with their fairgrounds, that's the type of environment we're looking at for Henry County. It's going to really, really be an impressive thing. We have Ivy Tech here now. We have a first-rate YMCA, and when this expo center is built, it's going to be a big deal.
Be a great a great event space.
Yes, it's going to be there for trade shows, proms, weddings, dinners, and it will also be home to 4-H and all and
the fair.
serving the youth of the community, not just 4-H but across the board. So,
Right.
big thing. We're excited to have Kathy on next week. Total self-promotion on my side. Yard signs came in for the county council race. So if you live in Henry Township or somewhere with high traffic areas, send me a DM on Facebook or email me, jeremiahmorrell@gmail.com or jeremiah@BossHogLiberty, and we'll hook you up with some
And
yard
just
signs.
as a reminder, if this video gets 50,000 views, Jeremiah will get a Boss Hog of Liberty tattoo somewhere visible on his body.
You always bring that up.
I'm voting for like his ring finger on his right hand.
We'll see. We'll talk about it. I want to get the Morrell crest at some point. I have 0 tattoos, so this is a big one for me.
He said that after an episode reached 1,000 downloads, he would get one. And now that we've had multiple episodes reach 1,000 downloads,
He still doesn't
he
have a
won't get
tattoo.
one.
Nobody believes you at 1,000. I need to hear video evidence of that. We'll see.
You just told her before the show started.
I did not. I've told you a million times not to exaggerate, Dakota. We will see you guys next week with Nan and Kathy and who knows who else. Thank you, Donya, for being here.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you guys next week.